Hello and welcome back to another episode of A Weekly Waypoint. Today, as you can already see, we are playing Tony Hawk's Pro Skater 1 for the PlayStation 1. Now, an immediate disclaimer, because this will be an important disclaimer. I didn't grow up with this game. My first Tony Hawk's game was Underground, and I didn't really understand how to play Tony Hawk games and, get high scores and good combos and stuff until I eventually learned how to manual properly, and that was probably about, I don't know, when I was playing Tony Hawk's Pro Skater HD. In other words, I never played the PS1 games, so this is me going back and checking them out, and therefore my gameplay is absolutely awful. And I know most people won't care, but if I don't point that out, I'll get some comments with those crying, laughing emojis going, "What are you even doing playing this game? You don't know how to play this game." The PS1 games are a lot more difficult. As I already alluded to, you cannot manual, therefore it's difficult to string combos together, but also the controls are just less responsive in general. It feels like it's more punishing in terms of how you land, and you'll fall over if you land at this awkward angle, or this animation might last a bit longer than you're used to, or if you hit a wall at anything remotely speedily, you will fall over. Well, I guess not like that. That was an awful example. But that's about the limit of what you're allowed, okay? Also, yes, no background music, I'm afraid. Tony Hawk's does not feel right without it, but it's gotta be how it's gotta be. Listen, the law are concerned that if I play this game with Superman playing in the background, that you're going to click on this video and watch it just to be able to listen to Superman in the background for free. And they're very sane and normal for thinking this way. We wouldn't want to go against very sensible copyright law now, would we? I am of course playing this game today because Tony Hawk's Pro Skater 3 and 4 got announced in the last week, as well as some controversy surrounding that game too. We'll get to that in a minute. But yeah, I'm pretty excited for it, so I figured we might as well do a little Tony Hawk's marathon while we wait for it. You might be wondering why I'm not playing Tony Hawk's Pro Skater 1 and 2 instead. First of all, we've already done that on the Weekly Waypoint, and I kind of wanted to try something a little bit different. And yeah, I just thought it would be fun to go back and check out these levels in their original iterations, if slightly upscaled. There is also a Tony Hawk's Underground 2 mod, which adds in a bunch of these older levels as well. I have played them there too. I am well familiar with them, but I have neither that nor Tony Hawk's Pro Skater 1 and 2 set up right now, and by set up I mean I own 1 and 2 on my PS4, and they still haven't put it on Game Pass for some reason. Microsoft are awful at putting the Activision back catalogue on Game Pass. So awful I want to shake my fist and write stern emails, but they don't care. I'm a little flummoxed that you don't look at the Tony Hawk's Pro Skater 3 and 4 announcement and go, that would be a great time to put 1 and 2 on Game Pass. Anyway, whatever, doesn't matter. I should mention as well what we're doing is we're going for every level and we're doing a 2-minute high score run on each. It is my first and only attempt on each level, because if I decided to be a perfectionist about this video would not get made, and let's be real, I'm never gonna get good at this version of the game. My intention is to play through 1 to 4, and then, I don't know, we'll see how I feel, because that's a lot of the same thing in a row, but if we still want to be playing some Tony Hawk's afterwards, we can go revisit 1 and 2, or we can visit Pro Skater HD, the original HD remake. I haven't played that in absolute years. We could play American Wasteland, we could check out some of the different versions. I did check out Tony Hawk's Pro Skater 3 and Pro Skater 4 on PS1 because they did both have PS1 editions, and boy are they rough. I think we'll be sticking to the GameCube versions of those when we actually go and visit them, but it could be fun to show a little side by side. I don't know, let me know what you think. That's a legal requirement, you have to let me know what you think. Officers, yeah, they're not letting me know what they think. Get him. So yeah, back to Pro Skater 1. I gotta say, not being able to manual to string combos together does change the gameplay significantly. Suddenly, half pipes become a lot more valuable because you're trying to string together grab tricks and flip tricks, and you're trying to do 360 movements and stuff like that, and grinding just becomes like a little traversal trick to try and keep up a little bit of a combo if you're going from one half pipe to the next. Honestly, I didn't really grasp this throughout most of my time playing, as you can see. I'm still relying on the old grinding. But there are a few times when I do good. If I'm being brutally honest, I can't really see myself spending a lot of time with this version of the game. It's definitely a novelty to go back and check out, but I do see why they opted for for a full-scale remake with Pro Skater 1 and 2 instead of just remasters. I don't think this game has aged very well. They might have been able to get away with it with Pro Skater 3 and 4 if they wanted to, though. And indeed, some people might have preferred it if that's what they had done, because after the news that Tony Hawk's Pro Skater 3 and 4 was indeed real, and of course not being made by Vicarious Visions because Bobby Kotick, the bastard, and they work on Diablo 4 now. No, this particular remake is being helmed by Iron Galaxy, who mostly work on ports, which is interesting, but their original works do include games like Dive Kick and Killer Instinct Season 2 and Season 3, Rumbleverse, Extinction, Racketeer. I've never played any of these games, but they've not had any experience making a Tony Hawk's game before, so that's a little concerning. But you know, it looks good in the trailer. I'm sure they'll do great. Maybe because they have so much experience making ports of games, maybe this is a case of like the original game is running beneath new graphics or something. But that would be weird because the controversy strikes. The controversy is that Tony Hawk's Pro Skater 4, which was famous for finally straying away from the traditional mode of doing all the things you can in 2 minutes and doing something closer to what we would eventually see in Tony Hawk's Underground with an open world kind of career mode. That's being canned and replaced with just like the usual 2-minute skate around, do the things. And Tony Hawk's Pro Skater 4 fans are very displeased with this, as well they should be. That is very lame, and I am sorry to hear it. I have to be completely upfront with you, it is not a deal breaker for me personally, because I started this franchise with Underground, and while I did go back and revisit Pro Skater 3, I've never played Pro Skater 4, and I don't really know what I would be missing, and I'm happy with the 2-minute go accomplish a bunch of goals style gameplay. It's fine for me, but I understand where people are coming from, and it does suck that they didn't remake that. Like, if I got sold on a Tony Hawk's Underground 1 and 2 remake, and then 3 or 4 days later was told, oh, it's just 2-minute missions, I would be fuming. Okay, but enough about this dang Tony Hawk, man. That's not all we're here to talk about, right? I would also like to discuss... where is it? Ah, there it is. Video games that I played this week. Sorry, I grabbed a book from the shelf for that dumb bit, and I've just got it. Oh, that's good stuff. I recently picked up the third Realm of the Elderlings trilogy, the Tawny trilogy. Oh, it's been a minute since I got a new paperback, and they smell good. I literally just keep picking them up off my shelf and holding them and feeling them and opening their pages and sniffing them. I'm not weird. I still need to finish Ship of Destiny from the Live Ship Traders trilogy, but I'm working on it. Books aren't video games, I know. Let's get to video games. Last week I talked about how my Adurhada was in overdrive and I could not settle on a game. I had this feeling of restlessness, and whenever I had a moment to play a game, it was mostly just taken up with me feeling frustrated at not knowing what to do and just kind of watching paint dry instead. So the question is, has that settled down? A little bit. I've still been booting up various games, seeing if anything is scratching the itch, but I'm finding more itch scratches than duds, I guess, is how we're gonna say that. I mean, I dedicated a decent amount of time last week talking about returning to Pokemon Violet and giving it a chance and all that stuff. Still playing through Pokemon Violet at the minute. I'm nearly done with the main story, which isn't a great feat. It's not the longest campaign in the world, but it's a fun game, and I will probably pick up the DLC because I'm having fun with it. I don't want to, like, reward Game Freak for the awful optimization of Pokemon Scarlet and Violet, but, you know, I'm not contributing to launch week sales on that stuff, and it looks like they're trying to fix some of those issues with Legend ZA from the gameplay we've seen, so I don't feel too guilty about that. Continuing on from last week, though, I'm afraid I have not played any more Monster Hunter Rise. I don't regret buying it, weirdly. I still plan to, you know, give it a shot, and I think I'll get into it someday, if I'm being honest. I haven't written it off yet. I might boot it up in a minute, I don't know. I mean, if I'd paid full price for it, I would absolutely have buyer's remorse right now, but I got it pretty dang cheap. But one game I did download and start up this week, which I got about a year ago now, I just didn't touch yet, is Divinity Original Sin 2. I've played the first 10 hours of Divinity Original Sin 1 like 4 times, and I considered the prospect of returning to my single player playthrough of 1, and I was like, I'm just gonna wait till I'm playing it with Reese in our co-op playthrough because I can't keep doubling up on that, it's gonna drive me crazy. But I definitely had an itch. I think it was Avowed that did it to me. Obviously Avowed is not a CRPG, but it is a sequel to a CRPG in Pillars of Eternity 2, and I was talking to some people about Avowed, and we got to talking about Pillars of Eternity, and it made me think about that genre. So I did the natural thing and installed Divinity Original Sin 2 instead of Pillars of Eternity, which I also own. I am currently 6 hours into Divinity Original Sin 2, and last I played, I went up against a boss that beat me, and I think that is one point of danger for that game for me, because I'm about to say a lot of really positive things about it, but I will say boss fights can last like half an hour, and then if you fail those, the prospect of starting again or going away and leveling up somewhere else and coming back and doing that again does not please my particular flavour of brain, so I need to get past that. But everything else is incredible. Like I say, being so familiar with like the first 10 hours of the first game, it is downright surreal to be playing the sequel, because it's in many ways quite an iterative sequel. It's very familiar. It builds upon what made the original great, and of course this one is far more well known than the original for good reason, but it's still, like, you can tell it's the kind of sequel where they worked on the first game and just put new content in it and then built it out from there instead of starting from scratch, and that's not a bad thing. And I think the thing that impresses me most with 2 is the companions. The companions in 1 were fine, but the companions in 2, I don't think there's a single one I'm not intrigued by. They all have really interesting backstories and stuff, and I think it helps that this game also dabbles with different fantasy races, whereas, at least as far as I got in the first game, it didn't. It's, at least not in terms of playable characters. So my party is currently made up of me, Thane, who, I love that. I love the concept of Thane so much, this eternal undead character from before time or whatever. Ifan Ben Mezd, which honestly I didn't think I was gonna go put a standard male-ass human in my party just because of everything else that was on offer, but I just really like him so far. And Lowe's, who has some stuff going on. I'm not going to spoil any of these storylines, but yeah, I just really love all of their origin stories. I was going to have a Red Prince on my party because he also has a really interesting origin story and arguably a fun personality, except he keeps telling me how much he loves slavery, and I'm just not about that, my guy. If I'm being perfectly honest, I regret not choosing an origin character. I did a custom character because in my brain, I'm gonna want my own character to play through the RPG in, right? I made a dwarf called Ogmar. I think it's Ogmar, something like that. He's a knight, and he's also a noble, which I've realised was the wrong background to choose because I thought, oh, you know, a noble knight, he could be kind of stuck up and posh or whatever, but that could be fun flavour. But so far, all of his flavour text dialogue options for nobles has just been, ugh, filthy peasants. And I get it, but I'm like, oh, I didn't realise I was going to be locked into that kind of noble. But I kind of wish I had chosen an origin character because, A, first of all, I'm really curious to see what it's like to play through the origin system, because I'm just curious, like, what is that like to play with a character that has a fully written backstory instead of just a custom character that you headcanon. But also it would have given me more of an opportunity to explore the origins of a fourth one of these characters that you can have in your party. Because if you don't know what I mean by origin character, basically, for instance, you could choose to start the game playing as any of those characters I just mentioned, the Red Prince, Lowe's, Ifan, Thane. I don't know how plausible it's going to be exploring the companion quest lines of those who aren't in my party, because I'm not the kind of player that's going to switch up my party every few hours. I'm probably just going to stick to a particular cast. So yeah, I do wish I'd chosen an origin story, but then maybe there's some custom character specific stuff that I've not really encountered yet. I don't know. I mean, like I say, there's those dialogue choices, but I also know that there's dialogue choices for the origin characters too. Like, you can still play as them when they're in your party, and if you initiate dialogue as them, I assume those choices will still come up, you know, stuff like that. But I know Baldur's Gate 3 also has the origin characters, so I think next time I try and play that, I will start up a new playthrough and I I will do it as an origin character there. But yeah, I'm really enjoying my first stint in Divinity Original Sin 2. I think it's a really bloody good game. If you played Baldur's Gate 3 and it transformed your life, and it's one of your favourite games of all time, and you haven't played Divinity Original Sin 2, I have great news for you. You will probably like Divinity Original Sin 2 quite a lot. Like, unless literally all you get from Baldur's Gate 3 is that it's set in that universe, then that's the only like reason I could see you not loving Divinity Original Sin 2, because that's not the D&D thing. That ain't the Forgotten Realms, alright? But yes, there is absolutely an alternate universe where I decided to roll an origin character, and I'm just here in this video going, kinda wish I'd rolled a custom character. I want to see what the game's like for a custom character's eyes. Also, the game gives you like 7 different ways to resolve Act 1, at least that's what it looks like from where I am right now, and I've progressed a tiny bit of all of them, and I'm just like, I can't choose one because I want to see what happens with all of them. So yeah, a lot of replayability it seems like with this game. What else? Oh, I did end up picking up Warhammer 40k Bolt Gun in a sale. I don't remember if I talked about that last week because I did 2 different takes of my commentary for that one, but I did note that it was leaving Game Pass and it's a fun game, and I went, ah, dang it. But I got it on Steam now, so it's all good. It's all gravy. I saw that Final Fantasy 16 had De Nouveau removed from it, so I decided to boot that back up and see if it ran any better. And I think it does. I think it runs at like probably 5 to 10 FPS more. Like, I would say I was averaging 45 before, and now I'm more like, it's not quite 60, but it's very close, you know. So that's nice. I did a couple side quests. I still don't know if I'm really going to get back into that game yet, or if I might continue my break. Maybe I want to wait till I'm a bit more settled. In terms of reading, as I alluded to earlier, I've continued my read-through of Ship of Destiny, which was on hiatus for a little bit. But now that I own the Tawny Man trilogy, and I've read like the first couple of lines of it, and I'm like, ah, shit, I'm really into this. Even though I read the Farseer trilogy like in 2017, and I don't remember a lot of it now, I'm so on board for this sequel trilogy, man. And I didn't put Ship of Destiny on hiatus because it was a bad book, far from it. It's a really good book, and I'm really enjoying returning to it. Also, I am absolutely steamrolling my way through the Final Empire audiobook, which is my reread of that trilogy. I'm going about this in 2 different ways, by the way. I read the Farseer trilogy in 2017, and I read the Mistborn trilogy in 2018. For Mistborn, I'm doing a reread before continuing on to the sequel trilogy. For Farseer, I am not, and I am going to compare notes and see which method I preferred. And I'll probably make a video on that when I have that done. But I've looked up like summaries of what happened in the Farseer trilogy, and I do kind of like get the impression that the book will remind me of important things as we get to them. Also, I can't remember if I talked about this last week or if I hadn't started yet, but I started reading the Watchmen comic, which wouldn't have taken me this long, except it's the deluxe edition, and that comes with a whole bunch of inter-chapter, or inter-issue, I guess, big walls of text of lore about the world, which are good, but definitely break up the pacing and slow down reading. I also decided to finally pick up my Daredevil comic read-through where I left off with Shadowland, so I'm currently reading through Shadowland, which, like most Marvel events, is fine. It's fine. I think I'm getting jaded about ensemble stories and cross-comic events and stuff, but I think the best Marvel comics are usually just within their own series, you know. But yeah, obviously the new Daredevil show kind of put me back towards that direction. Also The Flash. Yeah, I'm all over the place still, I know. I'm embracing it. It's cool. It's fine. I'm having a great time. What is my favourite flavour of pie? All of them. All of them within a few minutes of each other. Little samples of each. Tasty pie. Alright, thank you for watching. Sorry I'm weird. I'll catch you in the next one.